Sometimes reputation hasn't caught up to reality, and infused with this culture that we see from the media. And I think the media doesn't tell the correct story all the time.
Brian Samson, founder of Plug Technologies, he's unlocking the power of nearshore talent, showing how smart global hiring, real-time collaboration, and built-in arbitrage help companies scale faster and smarter.
The price you pay is actually based on the media and the reputation, not the reality. And that alone is this built-in arbitrage for entrepreneurs. It's the same way to think about getting a senior level person for a junior level price, because you're paying for the skill set today, but the reputation of yesterday.
What's up, everybody? This is Ryan Van Orm back with another edition of the Scaling Up Success podcast, powered by Cynergists. Cynergists is your scalable operations company that helps you grow exponentially faster at a fraction of the cost. Go check out Cynergists.com for more information. Also, while you're at it, go like and comment and subscribe to all of our videos on Spotify and YouTube. While today, I'm really excited. We have Brian Samson with Plug Technologies on. Brian, how are you today?
Hey Ryan, doing awesome. Thanks again for the chance to talk to you.
Absolutely, man. Excited to hear more about what you got going on. You really excited about it, man. I know you got some really cool pieces of your business that you want to talk about. Let's just jump into it. Sound good?
Let's do it.
Awesome, man. Well, tell us a little bit about Plug Technologies. What you got going on there?
Yeah, Plug works in the world of nearshoring. And I know your business is all about that as well, nearshoring, offshoring. Your audience knows the world is flat, talent is everywhere, talent is global. And if you're trying to grow your business, you've got to go where the talent is and find where you can get more value than anywhere else. My business has found that in Latin America, and we are brokers for Latin America talent. There's a DIY model out there. You could do Fiverr, you could do Upwork. But if you're really ready for the next level, a company like us can make introductions you wouldn't get otherwise. And we have existed for about 4 years, but I've been in this Latin American nearshore world for about 10, and growing US companies that need talent from Latin America, we are the go-to company for that.
That's awesome, man. It's hard to find up and down, like the Latin American area. Like there's so many different countries, and finding the right people and finding the top talent in there. That's why you guys are succeeding and growing it like you are. So can you tell me, like, I mean, how was it building this company out, like, after COVID, man? I mean, it was probably a whole different scene after that, right?
Yeah, so I've been in this nearshore world for just over 10 years, and it's kind of split in the middle. There's pre-COVID and then post-COVID. I'll tell you with customers, maybe how it's been different with customers and how it's been different with the talent. With customers, we really had two cells pre-COVID. It was why Latin America was right for them, and then why the company that I represented was the right company for them. Post-COVID, everybody gets it. They get the talent can be remote, they get the talent can be everywhere. A lot of the companies we work with, they're optimizing for workday collaboration, which means the time zone has to be right on. And all respect to Asia, which has some great talent. But it's rough on people when they're doing, third shift to try to map US hours. If everybody's kind of awake when the sun's up, that's where Latin America's, the English is right there. They're watching the same Netflix shows we are. It's US style English. So there's a lot that I think people and companies were surprised by and really appreciated about the nearshore angle. So post-COVID, when we talk about nearshore, boom, they get it right away. And then it's just about, what makes us different. One of the biggest differentiators for Plug is that I've kind of ate the dog food myself, and my partner's eaten the dog food. What I mean by that is I lived in Argentina. I went through all the best and the worst part of it, of amazing tree-lined streets, the best steak in the world, All respect to the Midwest of the US, but Argentina, trumps it. The Malbec, the wine, the empanadas, the laid back pace of life, which is really interesting because Buenos Aires is a mega city with 14
Hmm.
million people. There's high energy and people are having dinner at 10 o'clock at night. So you kind of feel this like raw energy, just like in New York. But then you have things that hold it back, wild inflation, institutions that struggle with providing black and white rules for businesses and citizens, and all sorts of instability, geopolitical instability. So that kind of keeps the prices down. And, I've kind of lived it, breathed it, living there. I've been there 9 times. My partner was an expat in Monterrey, Mexico, so he's kind of lived it, breathed it. So we can offer firsthand experience, to our customers and prospects on what's the right city, what's the right country, how they should think about their budget, talent pockets, shipping laptops, getting stuff through customs. There's a whole bunch of nuances, and we can provide this firsthand knowledge. So that really sets us apart when we're talking to customers.
And that's fascinating. I love what you're saying, just being able to understand the differences between the countries, whether it's, Mexico or Argentina, the Central America portion, like how El Salvador, has, gone to a little bit of a lot of they've actually embraced cryptocurrency in there too. So like, understanding how payment travels, all of that stuff, there's a whole lot more than goes on than what people expect.
Yeah, I think something that I wanted to hit on where you were going, Ryan, is sometimes reputation hasn't caught up to reality. And infused with this, with culture that we see from the media, right? And I think the media doesn't tell the correct story all the time. But I want to show how entrepreneurs can use this to their advantage. So when you think about Mexico, if you haven't been there, maybe you think about it with this like brown tint of whatever movie you're watching, like Traffic or something like that, or Sicario, and you
Right,
see this like brown haze tint over the screen, and you think that all of Mexico is like that, or Colombia, and you think about, narcos and cartels and
right,
drug smuggling, or you think about Venezuela and it's like 1 trillion of their currency to buy bread, and but that stuff isn't totally based in reality. I mean, El Salvador has completely flipped around their country. I think it's the safest country in the West right now.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it is like they just did a 180. It's super safe. It's a thriving business community. But, maybe 10, 15 years ago, you hear about MS-13, so people think that's still the case. It's not. Mexico, if you've been to Mexico City, it is a thriving metropolis full of greenery. And you wouldn't know that if you thought about Sicario, right? Colombia's Medellin, which is the eternal spring, just a gorgeous city, tons of tech talent. Brazil, Argentina, Chile. Chile has one of the most scenic landscapes with the Andes, a super developed public transit system. Uruguay is extremely safe. It's like the Switzerland of Latin America with banking, safety, good regulation. So a lot of it is kind of knowing where to go, but also recognizing that what you read in the media isn't always the accurate case of today. And the price you pay is actually based on the media and the reputation, not the reality. And that alone is this built-in arbitrage for entrepreneurs. It's the same way to think about getting a senior level person for a junior level price because you're paying for the skill set today, but the reputation of yesterday.
absolutely, man. I couldn't, you nailed it right on the head with that. So, hey, one of the things that always find interesting when you're building businesses out, man, is like I'm sure you come across like some unexpected opportunities that help you with your growth? Like, is there something that is like just like out of left field that you didn't expect, and all of a sudden you're like, man, I'm gonna take this route with it, and it just opened up something amazing?
Yeah, I love that question. I think there's maybe, a couple stories that I could share. One is I wasn't really even thinking about this world called recruitment process outsourcing, RPO, for those that are kind of in the recruiting world. But what that really means is outsourced recruiting, you lease recruiters. Why companies would want this is when you hire, companies tend to hire in waves rather than like a continuous burn, at the exact same speed, right? So maybe like you got this big plan, January, February, March, you want to get all your hiring done and then let your team go to work for the rest of the year. But the problem is if you hire full-time recruiters, okay, like they crank the first quarter, and then what do you do with them the rest of the year?
Right.
So that's where RPO kind of lives, is you bring in this like embedded recruiting team for a couple months, they make the hires, you're like, okay, thank you. And then they move on. You're not invoiced anymore. And then that RPO team moves on to other clients that are hiring maybe in Q2 or Q3, and it's all kind of a rotation. So I didn't really know much about this world. But in 2018, 2019, I had somebody that I knew reach out and asked if I could help them find an RPO recruiter in Latin America. And because, I think they were trying to fill factory jobs and they had an Indian recruiting team, and Indian recruiters worked amazing for them for software roles, recruiting software developers, but recruiting forklift drivers, they were not connecting with that blue collar workforce. So they said, let's try Latin America. Let's call Brian. We know he knows this nearshore world. So I'm like, you know what? As the entrepreneur in me wants to say yes. So I'm like, I've never done this before, but let me say yes and try to figure it out. So I did, and then found two recruiters in Colombia, and it worked out famously. Those two grew to 14. And then I flipped that to the VC funded tech world, and that became 60 VC funded tech customers and a recruiting team of 55 that, was working on a project basis. So, that initial call of, hey, could you try to find me an RPO recruiter in Latin America? It was really a $2,000 investment that I made, basically floating a payroll. And that 2000 has turned into eight figures of invoices, that I've sent to customers over the years, for RPO project work. So never saw it coming, but it did a lot for my family.
That's phenomenal, man. And congratulations to that. And always taking that next step to be able to say, yep, I can achieve it. I can get it done for you. And look what it turned out to be. Nice work, man. Well done.
Thank you.
Well, absolutely. One of the things is like you it feels like there's always like these trends that are happening, like in business, whether it's, like the offshore, the nearshore, like the staffing world, they all kind of go in ebbs and flows, it seems like, and there's always changes to it. What How do you stay ahead of those trends?
Yeah, man, you hit it on the head. Like for the last 30 years, every year something's going to replace recruiters, right?
Right.
We either job boards or now it's AI, something's always going to replace recruiters. I think what it really comes to be is making sure that you're at the right level of efficiency and effectiveness, but I think a lot of companies try to be efficient before they're effective. I always want to be effective and then try to find efficiencies. So, and you also want to try to be a little bit ahead of the curve. To give you an example, about, 14 years ago, I started getting into like recorded video interviews, which meant that candidates could get a link and then do the first round interview anytime. And it was like, 5 minutes of their time. But I also saw on the other side, managers could then watch the interviews anytime they wanted to. And if anybody listening is in a hiring role, just like the brutal facts of interviewing are sometimes you know in the first 2 minutes if this person's just not going to be a fit,
Right.
but you gotta kind of stick around for at least 20 to 30 minutes to be polite. But, I saw that kind of right away, 14 years ago. Now it's been more common, the last few years, but 14 years ago was a very like novel thing. But I could see the benefit of both sides, and just trying to schedule interviews is hard, when you have two busy people. A couple of years after that, I saw the opportunity for video job descriptions, where oftentimes, like, if you post a job description, everybody and their mother applies, and you get, 1,000 applicants. And like, how on earth do you sort through this stuff? But also, all these applicants, when they just read the text, it sounds interesting. It sounds like it could be a good fit without really knowing what's what. With video job descriptions, the hiring manager tries to do a very authentic, let's just be real. I'm here in front of my office, in the office. There's no fireworks or crazy production. It's just me and an iPhone, talking for 2 minutes about what I'm like as a leader and what I'm expecting, what the job is all about. And if you're a candidate, would you rather do a 30-minute call with a recruiter or watch a 2-minute video of the hiring manager explaining who it is and what the office looks like in the background? So this creates an opportunity for self-selection. Instead of 1,000 people just applying on a text job, maybe 50 people watch it, apply, but you know that they really feel like they're a fit and they're not going to waste their time and not waste your time. So I saw those trends, like over a decade ago. So I think that's part of what I'm looking for is, what's the trend today, how to be effective, then be efficient, and try to do something that, isn't really being done by the masses yet.
I really appreciate that answer, man. It gives that better explanation of how you go along your business. So thank you. Appreciate it, man. One of the things that we do here on the Scaling Up Success podcast is we do a little rapid fire on get to know the CEO
Cool.
or the C-suite exec on a personal level. You up for something like that?
Let's try it.
What book are you reading, or like, do you have a favorite podcast that you listen to?
Yeah, book, I've got like a whole stack of business books, but I'm on one right now that's kind of out of that. I wouldn't say it's my favorite book yet, but it's the biography about Pat Tillman, who is on the Arizona Cardinals and
Yep.
lost his life, post 9/11, in the Iraq War. I think he was in Afghanistan. But anyway, I like reading stuff about that because it, inspires me, to keep going for it, keep getting better, and expect more of myself.
I was on the same base as Pat Tillman in like 2003. It was pretty cool. I never met him, but he was on
Wow,
the
no
same base as
kidding.
me.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. Pretty cool. What are you drinking? Coffee, tea, soda, energy drinks, water? What's your go-tos?
Yeah, coffee guy, it's now like a regular part of the rotation. So morning I'll put a little creatine in the coffee and then a
Let's
little
go.
bit of like coconut powder, if like that Leered superfood stuff. So I'll throw that in
Sure.
there and I'm usually good to go until lunchtime.
Nice. Okay, cool. If you had like one superpower, like if you're part of the Avengers or X-Men, what would that superpower be?
Yeah, I don't do so much of the comic book movies, but yeah, I'll take the cliche answer of being able to fly. I think that's a
There
good
you
one.
go. I like it. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Early bird, I've got two young kids, so there's no rest for the weary.
Yeah, exactly, man. You got to get that rest when you can. I like it. If you could have dinner with like a historical figure, either living or deceased, who would it be?
Ooh, that's an awesome question. Historical figure. Wow, what a good question. You know, I've been on this like wild kick around, World War One. I think
Hmm.
I've been like watching movies, reading stuff about that. I think I would like to be a fly on the wall of like what's going on in the war rooms and the strategy rooms in, Britain and Germany, kind of see on both sides because that was just like, and France, of course, like a brutal battle of attrition. And
Yeah.
years and years and years, like that line just barely moves. So I think I'm just, totally random, wild answer, but I think I'm just kind of fascinated with like nobody was making progress, but everybody was so optimistic about it.
Right. I love it, man. That was the whole thing about Armistice Day, right? Just lay
Yeah,
down your weapons. Yeah,
yeah,
I dig it, man. Very cool. If you, I know you've traveled a lot, but do you have a bucket list travel spot you want to go to still?
yeah. I've never been to South Africa,
There you go.
and my youngest brother has been there, and he went shark cage diving,
Ooh,
uh, Cape Town, and I just thought that looked really, really awesome. So I'd like to try that.
very cool. I got a couple more here. What's that go-to cheat meal for you, man?
Go-to cheat meal. So I live in Hawaii, and there's nothing like a fresh poke bowl,
I
where
knew you
you
were gonna
get,
go poke bowl when you said Hawaii, my
yeah,
friend.
yeah, you got, and the poke here is pretty tough to beat. So, that big kind of fatty tuna, white rice, get some furikake, avocado, cucumber. I could do that every day.
Dude, you know what? I could go for a little Kahlua pig right now or something, man. Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah,
gosh.
I, I actually got some of that in the fridge right now.
Oh my gosh. You're a lucky man right there. That's some good stuff. Hey, last one is what's on your workout playlist that you're bumping right now?
Workout playlist. I actually use that for podcasts. So I listen to a lot of podcasts when I'm working out. It's Friday. So there's a few things that I like where I realize I look forward to it based on the release day. So if you're a movie buff, the rewatchables, which is a Bill Simmons Ringer type universe,
Yeah.
that comes out every Monday night for me. So, like it's I realize like my anticipation now, at like 8 o'clock at night, I'll check if it came out yet. And if it's a movie that I love, I'm like, yes, I can't wait for this episode. Or if it's moving or heard of, like, man, this is a bust. But Friday, it's the All In podcast usually releases, which is, four tech guys in California that kind of give their recap on business, politics, tech, and I always learn a lot every Friday.
Very cool, man. Well, you crushed this rapid fire section of our podcast. So thank you for being a good
Um,
sport.
Good questions, fun questions.
Thanks, man. One last thing, if you could go back and be a time traveler back to when you were younger, getting out of high school, what's that one piece of advice you give yourself?
Man, I waited way too long to try entrepreneurship. I wish I did it like right out of the gate. I just didn't know any entrepreneurs. I didn't think that was something that was in my bloodline. And I waited till, my 30s to get into it. But I would have loved to do that, right out of the gate. There's nothing like it, and you realize how much it compounds. All that learning is for you and for your family, and you can't beat it.
I love it, man. Hey, if people are interested in your services, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. We are Plug Technologies, plugg.tech, TEC. It
Awesome, man. Brian, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for your time, man. Really appreciate it.
was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Absolutely. Ryan Van Orn, I'm signing off for the Scaling Up Success podcast brought to you by Synergist. Once again, go check out our site and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on all of our videos on Spotify and YouTube. Have a great day, everyone. Till the next time, stay blessed. Take care.